Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de whether you should, contribute to your 401ks. And if yes, come on, I love retiring early here, so you know the answer is most likely yes. Then up to how much of your income should you devote to this most basic of investment vehicles? Hey, XenPuck here. Another day not working for man. Praise be to the market for letting me be free. So today I actually got a real person question about personal finances, and that's how much one should devote to their 401k or Roth 401k. I figured I'd expand on that a little bit and frame it not so much as that my single answer will fit everyone, but rather what kind of person or life stage might fit each category or level of 401k contribution, all the way from, no contribution to the max, right? Also, side note, by the way, for the vast majority of people, and guess over 99.5% of people, no reason to pick Roth 401k, as that is, you'll be contributing post-tax money. And for most people, it is a certainty that you will make less income in retirement versus while you're actively having a job, right? So lowering your tax burden during your working years, which is now, would make way more sense than lowering your tax burden while in retirement. So unless you are certain you have some kind of gigantic inheritance that you know are coming in your later years, right? No reason why you should prioritize tax withdrawals of a Roth 401k at all. Okay, side note done. We'll assume everyone's on board with just a good old regular 401k and set focus on what amount to put into it each year, right? Now, anyway, if you're intrigued by what I might say, please feel free, subscribe, like, comment, share, all that social media buzzwords, or whatever, okay? Because I'm rich enough for me, and I will be great regardless. So, point number one, right? In the first camp, there are people who do not want to and do not contribute to a 401k at all. I admit, that was actually me for quite a few years when I was younger, right? Is it right for young people then? No, not really. I just didn't know any better, right? But I also wouldn't say there are no people who should stay away from, contributing to their 401k entirely, right? It will simply be a very small amount of people for which this strategy is appropriate, right? I'd say honestly, if you have some great idea on your own and want to risk that whole entrepreneurial path, you probably do not need to prioritize your retirement right now, especially if you're relatively young, right? Or if you just don't think you're going to live for a very long time. In both cases, there's a heavy emphasis on spending now, but for different reasons, right? What they do have in common is basically a need to squeeze out all the capital they have right now. I put only about 5% of people in this category because, true innovators are few and far in between. And same with people who really have a low life expectancy, right? Personally, when I was younger, I didn't know if I was going to make it to 40 the way I was living. But hey, as I got older, I got wiser. So I did adjust my own strategy to include thinking about further into the future, which coincidentally leads us into the next group. And that would be people who should contribute up to the company match percentage. And I'd say that should be for the vast majority of people who have access to 401ks. I'm guessing like 80% of the people in this group, right? So most companies will match a few percentage points to the employee contribution. That's part of the 401k's appeal, right? One, you get it via pre-tax money to lower your current tax burden. And two, you get a bit of a match, which is literally free money the company's giving you, so no reason to turn it down whatsoever, right? The caveat here is that you should do it only up to the match if and only if you cannot spare any more due to your particular life circumstances, right? What I mean here is that post spending on your needs, if you barely have enough to contribute more than the match, well, that's how much you should contribute then, right? But frankly, my standard one-size-fits-all advice on this topic would actually default to you should contribute at least to the match, but as much as you can spare. The reasoning is simple, right? Sure, you don't get any additional free money in the form of a company match, but if you can spare it, any amount devoted to a 401k will still lower your current tax burden even further, while essentially also working as a forced savings device, right? You won't miss the money you don't need, or see it on each paycheck after all, okay? Now, finally, who are these people then I think should actually fall into the final category, who just should plain on max out their 401k limit each year? Well, that's easy. That's anyone who makes pretty decent money, probably living in a very high cost living, cost of living coastal areas, or AKA my peeps, the tech workers of the developed world. And the main reason is simply that whole forced savings aspect, right? The reality is that even for high earners who can easily put away that $22,000, I think that's the limit for the 401k contribution in this year of 2023 anyway. I'd say 10K of that money, if it wasn't going to retirement and it simply showed up in your paycheck, right? Let's take 10K, it's a nice round number. 10K divided by, bi-weekly checks, that's 26 checks a year, would equal, like, after taxes, about an extra $350 per check, right? $350 per check is not super significant to somebody who makes, good tech company money, right? It's not significant enough to notice and will be spent just as quickly as it came in. So in most cases, I'd simply suggest not being able to have access to this extra 10K. Just having it in the retirement vehicle, like 401k, it simply mentally cordons it off for your long-term goals instead, right? Now, some people might disagree with me here, because you can certainly, invest your post-tax money in any regular brokerage account and not have to deal with, the 401k's additional rules on withdrawal compared to a regular brokerage, right? But my point remains that for most people who hasn't developed fantastical, mental discipline yet, it's just easier to set and forget about the money. And maxing on the 401k where you can afford it is a very good start. Just a start, but it is a very good one, right? So in conclusion, right, is 401k contributions important? Good Lord, I think most people would think it's so, or believe that, right? After all, it is meant as a replacement for pensions, and most people don't get pensions these days, right, for most types of jobs. And technically, 401ks are more flexible investment vehicles than those old-timey pensions. You do have moderately more control after all, but the reality is that always, if there's something positive, there's probably some compromise or negative, right? Having more control and flexibility can also mean more volatility and risk, because you are now in charge of your own retirement fund, right? And that's obviously not a bad thing if we know what we're doing. And contribution percentage really is just a start. Everything I talked about here today is just about, like, how much money you should put in, the input, right? So how much should one contribute? Same advice I'd give to any general savings rate question, really, which is as much as you can stand, right? Because that's just the beginning. We have to get to the fun bit of actually how to invest it later. But that's for a different day, right? So for now, remember, start with a retirement vehicle such as 401ks, right? If you have them available to you, take advantage. It has, those two perks that I talked about that's built into the thing. We can move on to investing and the fun parts of that and get to FIRE and all that, but that's more advanced, right? Just in the very beginning, you gotta at least contribute to your retirement vehicle of choice to begin with, right? Cheers, I'll approach it.